If you're thinking about moving to Lake Tahoe, Nevada, and you possibly want to do some short-term rentals on your property, then stick around because this video is made just for you. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe below and click on the notifications bell, and you'll be the first one notified when there's a new video about the current real estate market condition in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Hey everybody, my name is Tahoe Tony. I'm the managing broker for eXp Luxury Real Estate in Incline Village, Nevada. And my full name is Tahoe Tony Tuoto, but most people can't pronounce or spell my last name, so I just go by Tahoe Tony. My Nevada real estate license number is broker salesperson 144620. And every day I get emails, text messages, and phone calls from people just like you who are looking to make the move to Lake Tahoe, Nevada. And I love it. So if you're thinking about moving in 6 days, 6 weeks, or 6 months, go ahead and shoot me a text, send me an email, give me a call, and we'll get you started to making your path to make the move to Lake Tahoe, Nevada. And I guarantee this will be the best move you've ever made. So let's talk about short-term rentals. First of all, let's get this out of the way. Some people love short-term rentals. Some people do not like short-term rentals. Usually, if a property owner is making money on their short-term rental, they like it. And some of the neighbors who have to live next to them may or may not like it. So just be aware if you're doing short-term rentals, there are some people that don't like them and some people that really do like them. So why would you want to do a short-term rental? I've sold many homes to people that aren't living here full-time and they've got other things going on. So if they could rent it out when they're not there and make a little bit of money to help cover, the taxes or the HOA fees or maintenance on the property, or maybe just help cover some of the mortgage, they like that. And like I said, I'm not gonna say anything good or bad. I'm saying they make a little bit of money on the side, they're happy. What I don't recommend is if you want to buy a property and you could only afford the property if you're doing short-term rentals, I do not recommend that because the rules are changing on a regular basis. If the property is an HOA, a homeowners association, that homeowners association can vote of whether or not they're gonna allow short-term rentals or not. And just to be clear, a short-term rental, or sometimes referred to as STRs, anything under 28 days is going to be a short-term rental. So 28 days is the magic number. So even if you're rented out for 2 weeks, a year, you still need to get a short-term rental permit. If you look at the different sides of the lake, you have North Shore, Incline Village, Crystal Bay, and then on the south side of the lake, which is not South Lake Tahoe, that's on the California side. The South Lake Tahoe, there's State Line, there is Zephyr Cove, there is Glenbrook, and then different neighborhoods, but those are the major areas on the south side of the lake, and those are in Douglas County. Douglas County has a different set of rules than Washoe County does, which is Incline Village and Crystal Bay. So let's go over the rules at Incline Village and Crystal Bay really quickly. Basically, if you want to do short-term rental, you need to get a permit. If you're caught doing a short-term rental without a permit, you have to pay a hefty fine. It could be thousands of dollars. And you may never be able to get a short-term rental permit if you've broken those rules already. So be aware of that. The good news is, this is the good news, yay, on the North Shore, there's no limit to the number of permits, so that's good. The only thing that would restrict you is if you're in an HOA and they do not allow short-term rentals. Otherwise, all the houses and the HOAs that allow short-term rentals, you can get there. But be aware that HOAs are not set in stone. The rules there, the bylaws, they do vote on them, they do change them. So I've seen several HOAs that have, in the last few years, banned short-term rentals. So be aware of that. So that's why if you're looking to buy something and you can't afford it without a short-term rentals, I do not recommend that because those rules can change at any time. And even the county rules, which are a lot harder to change, but they can change. So be aware of that. If you can't afford it without short-term rentals, I don't recommend you buying it. But let's go over the rules basically on the North Shore. Like I said, there's unlimited number of permits. The permit fees are about $1,200 or different things, but that's a general rule and that's an annual fee. So it's about $100 a month. The good news on the North Lake, if you sell your property with permit, that permit is transferable. The bad news is you still have to pay fees. As a new owner, you have to fill out some forms and pay some more fees. Everybody wants their fees, right? The government agencies want their fees. There's no getting around that. What else? So the number of occupants in your house, obviously the more occupants you can have, the more you can charge, but the number of occupants are going to be limited by the amount of parking you have. So you need the parking allowed on your property. They're not allowed to count on the street because like right now it's snowing. That's why I'm doing this inside video. It's snowing like crazy. There's no on-street parking. So if you had a short-term rental, everybody has to be able to fit on your property, whether in your driveway or in your garage. If you're on an HOA and you have assigned parking, they need to have parking passes to let them know. I'm not going to get too much into the weeds because this would be like a 3-hour video otherwise. So I'm going to have links to the frequently asked questions and all that's on there, but I just want to give you a basic overview so you have an idea if this may work for you or not. One of the big things we changed in Washoe County, which is Incline Village and Crystal Bay, is in the last couple of years, you need to have a local responsible party or a property manager. If you're going through a local company, they're considered your property manager. If you're just going through like the VRBO or Airbnb or some of those other sites, you need to have a local responsible party, and that's somebody that if they get a phone call, they can arrive to the property within 1 hour in case there's a problem with too many occupants or too many people parking their cars, or somebody's having a party and they're outside the quiet hours, or too many cars. The sheriff will get a call. They will call the local responsible party, and they have to get there to take care of it and document it so that the neighbors aren't offended or whatever, you know, from the noise and all the parking and everything. So basically, because what happened before is people were out of town, they would be renting a place out, and there was nobody to be responsible for it. So now you need to have a local responsible party or a property manager. You do have to pay taxes. So if you get your permit, if you're using one of the sites like VRBO or Airbnb, they'll calculate the taxes for you and pay that. If not, if you're doing it on your own, you still have to pay your taxes. Ta-da, they still want their money, right? Even if you're doing it on your own. And the Washoe County has I think it's like one.us or something like that. There's a link there, I'll show you, that allows you where you pay your taxes. You fill out the forms. They make it real easy for you to pay your taxes, don't worry. Basically, you can't have more than 2 people per bedroom. So if you have a 3-bedroom house, that's 6 people total. You need to have parking, 2 people per car, basically. So you have parking for 3 cars. Still, like I said, you still have to pay the taxes, forms. You need to have a list of all the things in the inspection. You're going to have an inspection of the property. So you need to have smoke alarms that are interconnected. So if one smoking alarm goes off in one room, all the smoke alarms go off at the same time. You need to have carbon monoxide detectors. The room has to be more than 7 feet tall. It has to be a real room. Can't just be some basement you convert into, you know, Airbnb was famous for that. Just little Harry Potter closet type rooms. That's not legal. It has to be a bedroom meeting the codes. You had to have it part of the HVAC system. You can't just have a portable heater in there. That's not going to be substandard. You're not be able to get your permit. So those are the basic rules for the North Shore. So we move over to South Lake. It's a little bit more complicated. These are the towns of Glenbrook, State Line, the different neighborhoods like Kingsbury, Highlands, Zephyr Cove, all those parts on the south part of the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe. So South Lake, they go crazy. If you get caught doing a vacation rental in South Lake without the necessary permits, it's a $20,000 fine. Ouch. Yeah, I think in North Lake, it's about $1,200 or so. Sure, they weren't super clear on on the research I did, but it's still going to be a fine. But South Lake, it's a $20,000 fine. Ouch. So you need to get a permit. Like I said, the bad news is there's only 600 permits available. So if you don't have one of those permits, you have to get in line. You have to fill out all the forms and pay $100 to get in line to be able to get one of the permits coming up. How do permits come up, right? Well, if somebody sells their property, that permit is not transferable. This is in Douglas County on the south side of the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe. So the permit is not transferable. So if you sell your property, if you buy a property that's got a vacation rental history, there's no guarantee you're gonna be able to get a permit when that property changes ownership. Speaking of ownership, your ownership can only be a family or an individual or a trust. There's no LLCs or partnerships in South Lake Tahoe. It has to be an individual, family, or a trust. 600 permits total, and then there's also a density rule. So if you are in single family neighborhood, 15% of that neighborhood, no more than 15% of that neighborhood could be vacation rental permitted homes. If you're in like the touristy areas with condos and other tourist accommodations, it goes up to 20%. But again, no more permits in that neighborhood until somebody sells that, and then somebody on the waiting list can come in. So again, just like on the North Shore, you need to have a local contact person. You can have, they call it a property manager or a local contact person on the Douglas County. And again, you need parking permits. You're restricted by the number of people renting your place. Depends on your parking. The permits in South Lake Tahoe, so a tier 1 is going to be somebody who lives in the house and they're renting out a bedroom while they're living there. That's a tier 1. And those are like $250 a year. Tier 2 is for 10 people or less. So that's going to be most people, and that's if you're not living there. So when you're not there, you're renting out your property. Those permits are going to be $1,200. And then again, just like on North Shore, the ceilings have to be 7 feet or greater. You can't have portable heaters. It's got to be part of the HVAC system. The same thing with the smoke alarms, all have to be interconnected. The carbon monoxide must be detected. So trying to keep everybody safe. It's kind of like a hotel. If you have a 2-story building, they have to have an attached ladder that they can get out. Although if you have sprinklers, so I can get into the weeds on this really deep. But the main point I want to tell you here is, first of all, like I said before, I'll repeat it. If you can't afford to own a second home here and you want to rent it out to subsidize your mortgage so that you can afford it, I would not recommend that, because there's a good chance these rules can change. And if you're in South Lake Tahoe, you may lose your permit, or you may never even be able to get a permit. You may be in that waiting list for too long. So don't count on that subsidy income to afford it. But if you can afford it and you want to use that extra income to pay for your vacations, whatever, that's great. I recommend it. And I think it's great. I like having more people in town with the vacation rentals, but I love the new rules that having somebody responsible. And the sheriff's department came and spoke to at one of our meetings a couple weeks ago. They said the number of complaints has gone down tremendously with these new rules in place. And so I think that's good for our community, that we're getting more agreement. There's fewer fines, fewer penalties, and it's a little more regulated now, so that it's not this wild, crazy show that it was like 10 years ago when people were having parties. And one more thing, that this is important, I just discovered this and getting prepared for this video, is if you have a vacation short-term rental permit on your property and you want to have a party at your own house, that party has to follow the guidelines of your short-term rental permit. So if you want to have a wedding at your house and it's on a short-term rental permit, you may not be allowed to do that, because if you have too many people there or there's not enough parking. So be aware of that. Some of the bad things about having a short-term rental permit on your property is you're limited. You may or may not be able to have those big parties. So just be careful of that. And again, if you break those rules for that one event, like your wedding for somebody in your family or a family reunion or something, and you're going outside the rules of the short-term rental permit, they can revoke your permit and you may never get it again. So be aware of that. That's probably one of the big red flags that most people are not aware of. They think, oh, it's my party, this is not a renter. If you're under the short-term rental permit rules, they still apply even to your own personal party. So be aware of that. So some of the good things and some of the bad things of short-term rentals. So hopefully you found this video interesting. Again, my name is Tahoe Tony. If you like the video, subscribe below, click on the notifications bell. And if you're thinking about moving to Lake Tahoe, Nevada in 6 days, 6 weeks, or 6 months, give me a call and I guarantee you'll have the best real estate experience you've ever had.